Marco, almost 50, engineer. Divorced for about 10 years. Life is pretty quiet. Work, home, gym, weekend projects in the garage. I don't ask for much. Just want to do my job, pay my bills, and see my daughter succeed. Her name is Penelope. She's 21, my only kid. After the divorce, her mom, Helen, got remarried pretty quick and moved a few states away. I was the one who stuck around. School meetings, driving lessons, the whole deal. I was proud to do it. She was a smart kid. Got into a good university in the city, about an hour away. I wasn't rich, but I managed my money well. Set up a college fund for her since she was a baby. It was enough to cover tuition, no problem. But I wanted her to be comfortable, to focus on her studies. So I co-signed for a nice little one-bedroom apartment for her downtown, much better than a dorm, paid her rent, paid for the utilities, bought her a safe, reliable used car so she could come home on weekends. I covered the insurance and gas, gave her a credit card linked to my account for groceries and essentials. The deal was simple. You focus on school, get good grades, and I'll handle the rest. For the first couple of years, it worked perfectly. She was doing well, called regularly, came home for holidays, normal father-daughter stuff. Then something started to shift. I think it was last year. The phone calls got less frequent. When she did call, she sounded different. Started using words I had to look up later. Problematic, gaslighting, emotional labor. Usually these words were directed at some professor or a character in a movie, never at me. Not yet. She got a new boyfriend sometime in the spring, never met him. Every time I asked about him, she'd get vague. Said he was a sociology major, very aware and principled. The credit card statement started to look a little different. Fewer charges for textbooks, more for weirdly expensive vegan cafes. One charge for $350 caught my eye. It was for a weekend workshop. The title was something like Dismantling Internalized Masculine Toxicity. I almost called her to ask what the heck that was, but I didn't. Figured it was just college stuff. You let kids explore their ideas. I just sighed and paid the bill, like I always did. The real alarm bell rang a few months back. She was supposed to come home for a weekend. I was looking forward to it, planned to do a barbecue, her favorite. She called me the day she was supposed to arrive, told me she couldn't make it. The reason was that my barbecue was an example of performative masculinity, and she couldn't ethically participate in the celebration of meat-based patriarchal rituals. I just stood there on the phone, holding a pack of steaks. I asked if she was joking. Complete silence on the other end. She wasn't joking. I ended up eating a burger by myself that night. It felt lonely. Fast forward to about a month ago. It was a holiday weekend, and she was coming home for 3 days. I decided to play it safe. No barbecue. I asked her what she'd like for dinner when she arrived. She sent me a text with a list of organic, gluten-free, locally sourced ingredients that took me 2 hours and a trip to a specialty grocery store to find. Whatever. I wanted to make her happy. I wanted things to feel normal again. She arrived on Friday evening. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was cut in a severe way. She didn't hug me, just gave me a little wave from the doorway. Dinner was tense. I tried to make small talk, asked about her classes. She gave one-word answers while scrolling through her phone, probably texting the boyfriend. The atmosphere was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I was trying my best, really. The main event happened on the second night. I'd spent all day making this complicated vegetable dish she had requested. We sat down at the table. It was quiet for a few minutes. Then she put her fork down and looked at me with this dead serious expression. Her phone was face up on the table next to her plate. I could see it lighting up with messages. She started by asking me if I knew what a power dynamic was. I said, "Sure, it's a concept in physics." That was the wrong answer. She sighed like I was the dumbest person on the planet. For the next 20 minutes, she gave me a lecture, a full-on, rehearsed-sounding lecture. It was about how our entire relationship was built on an unhealthy and toxic power dynamic, how my financial support wasn't a gift, it was a tool of control, how I was using money to keep her dependent on me, to force her into a subordinate role. I just sat there, listening. My dinner was getting cold. I tried to explain that I was just trying to be a good father, to give her the best start in life. She said that was my male conditioning talking, that I couldn't see past my own privilege. Every point I tried to make, she had a buzzword to shoot it down. "That's gaslighting. You're being defensive." You need to check your privilege, Dad. The word dad was starting to sound like an insult coming from her. The whole time, her phone kept buzzing. I could imagine the boyfriend feeding her lines, coaching her from miles away. I was getting tired, not angry, just this deep, heavy exhaustion. I've worked my entire adult life, double shifts when she was young, missed out on things with my friends to save for her future, all of it, just to be sitting here, in my own house, being told I was a villain from some textbook. I think she sensed she was losing my attention. She decided to go for the big finale. She stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. She pointed a finger at me. You don't get it. You will never get it. Your money is a weapon and your support is a cage. You are not my father. She paused for dramatic effect. You are my oppressor. And that was it. Something inside me just switched off. It wasn't a snap. It was a quiet click. All the warmth, all the worry, all the paternal instinct, gone. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I looked at her, this stranger standing in my dining room, and I said, "Okay, I understand." I calmly picked up my plate, scraped the uneaten food into the trash, and put the plate in the dishwasher. Then I went into my office and closed the door. I could hear her in the other room, probably expecting a fight or for me to come begging for forgiveness. But I just sat at my desk in the dark for a long, long time. The next morning, I woke up early. I felt strangely calm, clear-headed for the first time in months. I went to my computer and opened up my online banking portal. I made a list. The monthly wire transfer for her rent, canceled. The automatic payment for her car loan, canceled. The utility bills linked to her apartment, unlinked and canceled. Her phone plan, which was part of my family plan, scheduled for disconnection at the end of the day. I logged into the credit card account. I didn't cancel her card. I just lowered the limit to $5. Then I went into my insurance portal. The only thing I didn't touch was her health insurance. Like I told her later, I'm not a monster. I printed out the list of everything I had just done. I went downstairs. She was in the kitchen, making tea, acting like nothing happened. She gave me a smug little smile, the kind that says, I won that argument. I didn't say a word. I just put the printed list on the table in front of her. She glanced at it, confused. I sat down across from her. Penelope, I said, my voice perfectly level. I was up all night thinking about what you said, and you're right. The smug look on her face grew. You are an adult. You are a strong, independent woman. It was wrong of me to hold you back with my financial oppression. Her smile faltered. She was starting to get it. So, I have liberated you. Effective immediately, you are free from my toxic financial control. All of it. I tapped the paper. This is a list of the chains I have broken for you. She stared at the list. Her face went pale. She looked up at me, her eyes wide. You're joking. This is a joke, right? I have never been more serious in my life, I said. You called me an oppressor. I have decided to stop oppressing you. You should be thanking me. She just stared. The silence was deafening. This isn't funny, Dad. You can't do this. I can, I replied. And I have. Your rent is due on the 1st. That's in 5 days. I suggest you figure something out. She sputtered, tried to find the words, the buzzwords. This is financial abuse. You're trying to manipulate me. No, I said, standing up. I am respecting your wishes. You wanted to be free of my patriarchal money. You are now free. Congratulations on your independence. I left her there at the table, staring at the piece of paper that had just dismantled her entire world. An hour later, she stormed out of the house without saying a word. Slammed the door so hard, a picture fell off the wall. The first few days were quiet. I almost wondered if I had made a mistake. Then, the fallout began. It came in stages. The first sign was a call from my ex-wife, Helen. It was Tuesday, I think. 3 days after Penelope left. Helen was flustered. She and I don't talk much, only about logistics concerning Penelope. She said Penelope had called her, crying, told her some wild story about how I had a psychotic break and cut her off for no reason. Helen was trying to play the mediator, said I was being too harsh, that Penelope is just a kid going through a phase, that she says things she doesn't mean. I listened patiently until she was done. Then I calmly told Helen exactly what Penelope had said to me, word for word. I repeated the oppressor line. There was a long silence on Helen's end of the line. I told her, she said she wanted to be free. I gave her what she wanted. This is between me and my daughter, Helen. Please stay out of it. To her credit, she did. I think hearing the word oppressor shocked her too. The real fun started on Friday, the first of the month. I was at work in the middle of a meeting when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from my credit card company. Transaction declined, card limit exceeded. The charge was for $1,800, the amount of her rent. I couldn't help but smile a little. She actually thought I was bluffing. A few hours later, another buzz. A text from an unknown number. It was Penelope. My card isn't working. You need to fix it now, I replied from my own phone. Seems to be working fine on my end. The limit is $5. Did you try to spend more than that? Her reply was just a string of angry emojis. The next day I got an email. It was from her. The subject line was urgent. The email was a long, rambling mess. It was a mix of threats, insults, and weird pseudo-legal jargon. She accused me of violating the parental contract and inflicting emotional distress. She said her boyfriend, the sociology major, told her she could sue me for financial abandonment. I laughed out loud at that one. I wrote a very short reply. Penelope, you are an adult. I have no legal obligation to support you. You demanded independence, and I have granted it. I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors. That seemed to make things worse. The next phase was what I call the flying monkeys phase. Her friends started coming out of the woodwork. I got a couple of weird messages on social media from people I'd never heard of. They were clearly her university friends. They all had the same script. How could I be so cruel to my daughter? Didn't I understand the pressures she was under? Was I really going to let my own child become homeless because of a silly argument? One of them called me a toxic patriarch. I guess that was the phrase of the week. I didn't reply to any of them. I just blocked them. The situation with her apartment escalated quickly. The landlord called me around the 5th of the month. He was a decent guy. I'd always paid the rent on time, so we had a good relationship. He said the rent was late and he couldn't get a hold of Penelope. Her phone was going straight to voicemail, right? Because it had been disconnected. I explained the situation to him. I was polite but firm. I am no longer financially responsible for my daughter. She has her own lease and she is an adult. You'll have to deal with her directly. He sounded frustrated, but he understood. It wasn't his problem. The best part was when I heard about the boyfriend. Penelope must have eventually gotten desperate enough to ask him for help. I found this out from Helen, who called me again against my wishes in a total panic. Helen had called Penelope to check on her, and Penelope had unloaded the whole story. Apparently, when Penelope asked her boyfriend if she could move in with him, or if he could help with rent, he gave her a lecture. He told her that expecting him to provide for her was reinforcing the capitalist patriarchy. He said that true liberation meant embracing the struggle, and that she should see this as an opportunity for growth. He offered to let her sleep on his floor for a couple of nights, but said he couldn't afford to feed her. The guy lived in a shared house with 4 other sociology majors. Their rent was paid by their parents, of course. The hypocrisy was just staggering. So her ideological champion, the one who had loaded the gun for her, was the first one to run when a real problem showed up. According to Helen, this was the point where Penelope's panic really set in. Her friends offered solidarity and moral support, but not a couch to sleep on or $100 for groceries. Her boyfriend offered useless platitudes. Her mother was hundreds of miles away, and her oppressor was the only one who had ever actually provided for her. The reality of her situation was finally crashing down on her. She had no money, no phone, and in a few days she would have no home. Her car was next. The payment was due on the 15th. I got a notification from the bank that the automatic payment had failed. I knew the repo company would be looking for it soon. It was a tough lesson, but it was one she had written for herself. I kept waiting for the phone call, the one where she would apologize, the one where she would admit she was wrong. But it wasn't coming. Not yet. Her pride was too strong. The final call from Helen came about a week and a half into the month. She was crying this time, properly crying. She said the landlord had served Penelope with an official eviction notice. She had 3 days to pay or get out. Penelope had called her from a friend's phone, completely hysterical. Helen begged me to just pay the rent for this 1 month, to give her time to figure things out. She said, "Marco, she's our daughter. You can't do this." I took a deep breath. "Helen, I am doing this Because she is our daughter. She has been living in a fantasy world, and I have been enabling it. It's time for her to learn that actions have consequences. Words have consequences. I told her I had given Penelope a choice. She could get a job, live within her means, and be truly independent. Or she could come home, live under my roof, and follow my rules. There was no third option where she gets to insult me and I continue to pay for her lifestyle. That option was gone forever. I told Helen to pass that message along. The ball was in Penelope's court now. The final call came 2 days later, on a Wednesday night. I was in my garage, working on my old lawnmower engine, just trying to keep my hands and mind busy. My phone rang. It was from a number I didn't recognize. I figured it had to be her. I wiped my hands on a rag, took a deep breath, and answered. It was her, and she was not calm. The first thing that hit me was the sound. A raw, ragged panic I hadn't heard in her voice since she was a little kid who had woken up from a nightmare. There was no hello, no preamble, just a torrent of accusations. I ruined her life. I was a monster. I was trying to destroy her. She was screaming that her landlord was going to throw her stuff out on the street tomorrow, that this was all my fault, that I was a cruel, vindictive old man. I just held the phone a little away from my ear and let her vent. I didn't say a word. I just let the storm rage, knowing it had to run out of energy eventually. After a solid minute of her just unloading on me, she paused to take a breath. I used the silence. Have you called to discuss one of the two options I gave you? I asked, keeping my voice as steady and emotionless as possible. That just set her off again. Options? Options? My life is falling apart and you're talking about options. I don't have any options because of you. She was crying now, hysterical, gasping sobs. You have to fix this. Just call the landlord and pay it. Please, just pay it, and we can forget this ever happened. Forget this ever happened. That line hit me hard. The sheer audacity. The complete lack of self-awareness. No, I said. We are not going to forget this happened, and I am not paying your rent. I heard a sound like she had thrown her phone. There was a clatter and some muffled shouting. She must have picked it back up, because a moment later her voice was back. This time different. The anger was gone, replaced by a desperate wheedling tone. This was the bargaining phase. Okay, look, I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I was just stressed from school. It was the most insincere apology I had ever heard. Just help me out this one time. I'll pay you back, I swear. I'll get a part-time job. Please, Dad. I'm scared. She used the word dad like a key she thought would unlock everything. A few weeks ago, it would have, but not anymore. The lock was changed. The two options still stand, Penelope, I said. Those are the only two topics I am willing to discuss with you. She went quiet for a moment. I could hear her ragged breathing. So, you're really going to do it, she whispered. You're just going to let me be homeless. I am not doing anything, I replied. I am letting you make your own choice. You are an adult. Your housing is your responsibility. But I don't have any money. I have nothing. What am I supposed to do? That brings us back to the options, I said, my patience wearing thin. Option 1, you handle it yourself. You are a resourceful young woman. Option 2, you come home and we handle it together, under my terms. That's when the final wall broke. It was a complete and total meltdown. The ideology, the buzzwords, the smug superiority, it all dissolved into the terrified cries of a child. She was sobbing uncontrollably now, so hard she could barely speak. She wasn't yelling at me anymore. She was just broken. I can't do it. I don't know what to do. I messed up. Please, I don't want to sleep on the street. It was the first honest thing she had said in months. There was no pride left, no agenda, just fear. I'm not going to lie and say it didn't affect me. It's a terrible thing to hear your child in that state, but I knew if I gave in now, I would have lost her forever. She would learn that a tantrum was all it took to get her way. I let her cry for another minute. When she had quieted down a little, I spoke. Which option do you choose, Penelope? There was a long, shaky sigh on the other end. I heard a tiny, defeated voice. Option 2. Okay, I said. Here is what is going to happen. I am going to hang up. You are going to call your landlord and tell him you are vacating the apartment tomorrow. You will arrange to get your things. Your mother has offered to help you with that. I will text you the money for a bus ticket home. I expect you here by Friday evening. Do you understand? She just mumbled. Yes. Good. I will see you on Friday. And I hung up the phone. I put it down on my workbench and just stood there for a minute. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel like I had won. I just felt tired and sad that it had to come to this. The next 2 days were a flurry of activity that I was not involved in. Helen drove into the city. She helped Penelope pack her things into a storage unit. She dealt with the angry landlord. She got the car keys and drove the car back to my place before it could be repossessed. I just stayed out of it. This was the consequence, the cleanup. On Friday evening, a bus pulled into the station downtown. I was there waiting in my truck. She was the last one off. She was carrying a single backpack. She looked diminished. Her trendy, severe haircut was messy. She was wearing sweatpants and a hoodie. The confident, lecturing activist was gone. In her place was just a tired, defeated kid. She saw my truck and slowly walked over. She got in without a word and buckled her seatbelt. The drive home was completely silent. When we got back to the house, I brought her bag into her old room. It was exactly as she had left it years ago. High school posters still on the wall. She just stood in the doorway looking at it, like it was a museum of a different person's life. I let her get settled for an hour. Then I called her downstairs. We sat at the same dining room table where this had all started. I had a piece of paper in front of me. "Welcome home," I said, my voice neutral. "I'm glad you chose to be here. Now we need to go over the rules." She just nodded, staring at the table. Rule 1, you will get a job. Any job. I don't care if it's flipping burgers or stocking shelves. You will be employed within 2 weeks. You will work at least 30 hours a week. Rule 2, you will contribute. Half of every paycheck you earn goes to me for room and board. The other half goes into a savings account to pay for your car insurance and eventually a deposit on a new apartment. Rule 3, you will be a member of this household. That means chores. You will do your own laundry, keep your room clean, and you will be responsible for cooking dinner twice a week and cleaning the kitchen afterwards. Rule 4, respect. We will not have a repeat of our last conversation. You will speak to me respectfully in my own home. I will do the same for you. We can disagree, but we will not be disrespectful. I paused, letting it all sink in. This isn't a punishment, Penelope. This is the deal. You live here, you pull your weight. Are we clear? She looked up at me. Her eyes were red-rimmed. She nodded slowly. Clear. And that's how it began. The first week was rough. She barely came out of her room. But she did what I asked. She got on the computer and started applying for jobs. Dozens of them. She got a lot of rejections. The real world wasn't too interested in her university theories. Finally, after a week and a half, she got hired. At a coffee shop on the other side of town. Early morning shifts, making lattes for people like the person she used to be. I watched her come home from her first day. She was exhausted. Her feet hurt. A customer had yelled at her for using the wrong kind of oat milk. She slumped down at the kitchen table and just stared into space. I didn't say, "I told you so." I just pushed a glass of water towards her. Slowly, things started to change. Getting up at 5 a.m. every day grinds the ideology off you pretty quick. She was too tired to be an activist. She was just a girl trying to get through her shift. She started to understand what $1 was actually worth. She saw it in terms of how many hours of dealing with rude customers it took to earn it. Her expensive vegan lifestyle went out the window. She started eating whatever I cooked because it was free and she was hungry. Her old friends stopped calling. I guess the girl working at the local coffee shop wasn't as cool as the radical student living downtown. Her principled boyfriend disappeared completely, sent one text saying he couldn't be with someone who had capitulated to the patriarchy. She just deleted it and went back to sleep. Her world got a lot smaller. It was just the house and the coffee shop. We didn't talk much, but the tension started to fade. We'd eat dinner together in silence. It wasn't angry silence anymore, just quiet. One Saturday, I was out in the garage trying to fix a wobbly leg on a table. She came out and just stood there, watching me. After a minute, she asked, "Do you need help holding that?" I was surprised, but I just said, "Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks." So she did. She held the leg steady while I tightened the bolts. We didn't talk, but we were working together. That became a regular thing. She'd help me with projects around the house, yard work, cleaning the gutters. She was a hard worker. I think she just needed to direct that energy towards something real. The turning point came about 2 months in. She came home from work looking furious. She threw her keys on the counter and vented about how her manager had cut her hours and given them to a new girl, and how unfair it was that she was working so hard and getting nowhere. I just listened. When she was done, she looked at me and said, It's not fair. I do everything right and it doesn't matter." I nodded. "Yeah, sometimes it's like that." And we just looked at each other, and I think in that moment she finally understood. She saw me not as an oppressor, but as a guy who has been getting up and going to work for 30 years, dealing with unfair bosses and difficult projects, just to make sure she had a roof over her head. She didn't apologize. Not in words. But after that day something was different. She started asking me about my day. And she actually listened to the answer. She cooked dinner on her nights without being reminded. One evening I came home from a particularly brutal day at work, and she had a plate of food waiting for me. It's been about 6 months now. She's still working at the coffee shop. She got promoted to shift supervisor. She's saving her money. She bought her own phone and pays her own bill. She's paying for her car insurance. She talks about maybe taking some online classes in a practical field, like accounting. Our relationship isn't what it was when she was a little girl. It never will be, but it's real. It's built on a foundation of mutual respect now, not one-sided sacrifice. She still has her opinions, but she keeps them to herself. She learned that a lecture doesn't pay the bills. I didn't break her. I just let the real world show her the truth. Sometimes I think about that night she called me an oppressor. It still hurts. But I know now that I did the right thing. I didn't lose my daughter, I just made her finally grow up.